Assalomu alaykum. Biz bir nechta videoda ingliz tilidagi tinish belgilarini ishlatishni o'rganishni boshlaymiz. Tinish belgilari deyilganda nuqta, vergul, so'roq belgisi, undov belgisi, tire, ko'p nuqta kabilar tushuniladi. Lekin bu narsalarni men o'rgatmayman. Kompyuter dasturi bor. Dorling Kindersley nashriyotining dasturi. Mana shu dastur o'zi hamma narsani xuddi videoga o'xshash animatsiya ko'rinishida o'rgatadi. Men faqat buni sichqoncha bilan ishlatib turaman. Video o'zi animatsiyalar ekranda yozib olinadi. Xullas mana shularni ko'rasiz. Kommentariyalar ham bo'lmaydi men tomonimdan.
Hi there, I'm Mike McGee, and welcome to Punctuation Made Easy. Punctuation. It's pretty cool stuff, eh? Well, okay, I know that punctuation may not be the coolest thing in the world, but as we'll see, getting it right is pretty important if you want to communicate clearly when you write. Now, if you've already heard this intro before, click on my board here and we can get down to the nitty-gritty straight away. But if this is your first time to see the show, it might be best to let me start by putting this whole punctuation thing into perspective. So what is punctuation? Well, yeah, it's all that stuff about commas and question marks and colons. But why bother? Well, the simple answer is that if you don't use punctuation marks, then the meaning of what you write isn't going to be very clear, and sometimes it's going to downright confuse people. Don't believe me? Okay, then look at this sentence on my TV. If I wrote that down, are you sure you'd know what I meant? You see, I could be trying to say, what? Are we waiting for Peggy Sue? Or I could be trying to say, what are we waiting for, Peggy Sue? Or I could even be trying to say, what are we waiting for, Peggy Sue? In all three cases, the words stay the same, but the meaning of the sentences is very different because I paused and put the emphasis in different places in each sentence. And the reason I did this is because they are all punctuated differently. Punctuation is what writers use to convey to readers the way they should hear sentences, where they should slow down, where they should put emphasis, and so forth. Punctuation marks are like a kind of code which the writer sends to the reader along with the words. The code tells the reader how to read the words on the page. But what does each code mark mean? And what messages does it send to the reader? Well, that leads me to my board here. Now, as you can see, there is a section for all the main areas of punctuation. Click on any area and we can go through it together. So, you'd like to get clear on the use of apostrophes. Great. Well, let's start by seeing what you already know. I've got 4 short exercises I'd like you to complete. Once you've finished these exercises, I'll have a much better idea of your strengths and weaknesses, and so I'll be able to help you focus on any areas where you may need to get certain things straight. OK, let's get going. What I want you to do is to drag the check to the sentence or sentences which you think uses apostrophes correctly and the X to the sentence or sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. OK, thanks. OK, this time I want you to put an apostrophe into the appropriate place in each of these sentences by clicking on the space where you think it should go. When you've finished, click Done. Thanks. OK, here again. What I want you to do is drag the check to the sentence or sentences which you think uses apostrophes correctly and the X to the sentence or sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. OK, now finally, what I want you to do this time is to drag the check to the sentence or sentences which you think uses apostrophes correctly and the X to the sentence or sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. OK, that's lovely. Thank you. Whoosh. Well, from what I can see, your grasp of this area is pretty good. But you may still find it worthwhile to work through the sections in this area. You can do this by simply clicking on any section in the menu, or alternatively, click on the main menu button to select another area to learn about. Apostrophes are used for a number of reasons in English. Sometimes it's to show that two words have been run together, or contracted. Sometimes it's to show ownership or possession. In this section, I'll try to explain what all of this means. But let's start with the basics. What's an apostrophe? Well, an apostrophe looks just like a comma. But you write it up in the air. It's written higher on the line. You should line it up with the top of the tallest letters. And so, why do we use apostrophes? Well, as I said at the beginning, there are a number of reasons. But one of the most common uses of apostrophes is to show that two words have been run together, or contracted. In this example, he's is a contraction of he is. The I has been left out. So instead of two separate words, it contracts into one. Now, hopefully that all makes sense. But to check whether you've got it, drag the check to the sentences which are correct and the X to the ones which are not. When you've finished, click Done. Yes, well done, that's right. Number 1 is incorrect, because there is a contraction of they are, and so requires an apostrophe to make it clear that it is a contraction. Number 2 is correct because we've is the correct shortening or contraction of we have. Similarly, number 3 is correct because isn't is the right contraction of is not. And finally, number 4 is wrong because doesn't is a contraction of does not, and so requires an apostrophe to make the shortening clear. OK, so let's move on. All right, you've been through the sections in this area. Let's go back to the explanation board to see what other sections we can go over. OK, so you want to look into particular punctuation marks. So, you'd like to get clear on the use of apostrophes. Great. Well, let's start by seeing what you already know. I've got 4 short exercises I'd like you to complete. Once you've finished these exercises, I'll have a much better... One reason why we use apostrophes is to make it clear that a letter has been left out. But another very common use of the apostrophe is to show where something belongs to someone or something. This is called the possessive use of the apostrophe. Consider the term the cat's tail. What this means is the tail of the cat. So here we're talking about a possession of the cat. In cases like this, we use an apostrophe S after the last letter of the word. But sometimes it's not all that clear whether you should use an apostrophe or not. It's certainly very easy to leave them out. So what you always need to do is ask yourself whether the meaning has to do with possession or not. If we change the sentence around, could we use an of? For example, the writer's book. Should this be the writer's book, no apostrophe, or the writer's book, apostrophe? Well, ask yourself, what does it mean? If you think about it, it clearly means the book of the writer. And so this shows you need an apostrophe in writers. Always ask yourself, does anything belong to somebody or something? Now, hopefully, you've taken all that in. But just to check you've fully understood what I'm getting at, put the apostrophes into these sentences by clicking in the correct places. And when you're finished, click Done. Yes! Well done, that's right! In number 1, we're talking about the dentist of the children. The apostrophe S comes after the N in children. In number 2, we're talking about the cakes of my mom. So the apostrophe S comes after the M in mom. In number 3, we're talking about the field of one farmer. So the apostrophe S comes after the R in farmer. And finally, in number 4, we're talking about the sandwiches belonging to Peter. So the apostrophe S comes after the R in Peter. So let's move on. Apostrophes are used. The possessive use of the apostrophe works for both singular and plural nouns. But because so many plural nouns end in S, you have to be careful using apostrophes with plural nouns. Consider this sentence. The boys' game was really good. Here we're talking about the game of the boys, plural, not of the boy, singular. So the apostrophe comes after the S in boys. As in the case of singular nouns, it comes after the last letter of the word. But because the last letter is an S, it's a case of S apostrophe, not apostrophe S. To see if you understand what I'm getting at here, drag the check to the sentence or sentences which you think uses apostrophes correctly, and the X to the sentence or sentences which do not. When you're finished, click Done. Yes, well done, that's right. Numbers 1 and 2 refer to singular nouns, the basket of the cat and the umbrella of the girl, so the apostrophe goes before the S. Numbers 3 and 4, however, refer to plural nouns, thieves and babies. We're talking about the possession of more than one thief and more than one baby. So in these cases, the apostrophes comes after the S. Well, that's probably enough of this area for now. Let's move on. One important rule about apostrophes is that you should never use them with possessive pronouns. So, what's a possessive pronoun? Well, possessive pronouns are words like its and yours and theirs. Words such as its and theirs and yours never take apostrophes. Get this into your head and you'll avoid one of the most common mistakes in English. For example, the sentence, "The dog has hurt its tail," does not need an apostrophe. If you put an apostrophe, it would mean the dog has hurt its tail, and so would be nonsense. To see if you understand what I'm getting at, drag the check to the sentences which are correct and the X to the ones which are not. When you're finished, click Done. Yes, well done. That's right. Numbers 1 and 2 are incorrect. Its is a possessive pronoun and does not need an apostrophe. It does not make sense to say that the team lost its place. Similarly, whose never takes an apostrophe. The only form that does is whose, meaning who is. Numbers 3 and 4 are correct. They just use possessive pronouns and need no apostrophes.